All right.
Let me read it.
Hello. Looking for the phone. Cute. I love the cat. Cute.
No, it's just I'm trying to set up my webcam, and it's just the default image that it shows.
That's adorable.
It is a good one.
My wife always says, I've been looking for the phone. I can't find the phone. Hold off and give me a chance. That kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. No, I just charged my phone, so shouldn't die this time.
It shouldn't die. That's happy. That's popular. All right, very good.
And I get to see my beautiful face.
Oh, gorgeous, gorgeous. I'm sure it's somebody's taste.
Nosotros. Pues no sé, la mía está toda dura.
Oh, they got me. I can't speak that language. How's everybody doing?
Not bad.
Anybody having trouble with the fires?
Used to, but not this week.
You're not there anymore, huh?
Well, my grandfather was affected by one. We had to evacuate him at some point, that was a whole experience and a half.
Wow.
And then the skies this past week were orange, which I've never seen in my life before. But
Nobody has. That's how did the house survive? All right.
No hay otro burro, por favor. What?
Did his house survive?
Lleven ese carro,
sorry.
¿por qué no?
Yes, yeah, it was
Eres
fine,
pándaro
but
que no fueras.
within a mile of the house, or the fire line was within a mile of the house, which was a head trip. So
I have a friend of mine in Bend, Oregon, and he said that the houses in his neighborhood, about half of them have just been leveled. He says the house down the street was the foundation, the bricks in his fireplace, and a pile of aluminum.
They're all gone.
Melted. It was a disaster. What a disaster.
Yeah, it's been bad.
People lost everything. Thank God they didn't lose their lives. Hello. We're moving along here, getting everybody in. Give me a couple minutes.
You can watch YouTube because I need to talk. Sorry, just stay here.
So in regards to the perceptual map I was doing this weekend,
Mhm.
we're picking the two axes essentially that we're using,
Yes,
and it doesn't have to be any of the three that you provided
that
as
is,
an
that is correct. It doesn't have to be.
okay. Are we supposed to like draw it in on this graph because, or on this table, because you can't really in regards to the template you gave us?
You can use the text box, I understand.
So then you want us to also research one or two other companies for it then?
Yes, for example, Keebler or Chips Ahoy or something like that, to make it as realistic as possible.
Okay.
And you can be creative.
There's no minimum or maximum to the amount of companies?
No.
Okay.
I'm looking for the quality of your thinking, not the quantity of the papers that you write.
Don't you want though a specific product from a company to focus on as opposed to the entire company?
Yes, exactly. I don't want an entire company. How would you perceptually put in Nike, for example, and then try to compare it? You have hundreds of products.
Right, to choose from a whole lineup.
Right, and so that's why I say, for example, in the benchmark, you want to do the same thing. Pick a product or a product line, which is easier to research and easier to compare.
Happy birthday, Carson.
How'd you know it was his birthday? Gosh, I'm telling you.
Yeah, my birthdays consisted of Zoom calls and a doctor's meeting, so we're on.
That's
Yeah, real enjoyment, right? I understand.
Well, I went to Missouri, but apparently the elevation's way different, and so I couldn't figure out why. I kept having nosebleeds all the time, so I was like, this is weird. I always go back to Missouri every year, and suddenly, so I had to go there, and they're like, oh yeah, it's just because of the elevation and the dry air. I was like, well, that sucks.
It's also a lot drier there, I think, right?
It's drier, right? Yes.
It's more humid in Missouri than Washington, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
no, I'm expecting when I'm from South Carolina, so obviously the air is like soup water.
Right.
And so I expect whenever I get to GCU to have a bunch of nosebleeds.
Well, you got to remember something. The partial pressure of water vapor is lower than the partial pressure of air. So although you feel the air is heavy, it's actually lighter in humid air.
Yeah.
And you could prove that by baseballs and golf balls. They both go farther in humid air.
in humid, yeah.
That's a bet you can win, if anybody knows anything about science.
Yeah, I did flight school. So, in Arizona, for example, sometimes they'll do a no-fly ordinance even at Sky Harbor because the air it'll get so hot out that the air will be so thin that the planes can't even take off because there's not enough particles in the air. Because when it gets hot out, all the little particles spread apart.
Correct.
Is that why I get a
I was in Toledo, Ohio, and we had to wait 4 hours because the humidity was so high they couldn't get any lift on the airplane.
Yeah. That's why if you ever sit on the wings of a plane, sometimes when they take off, they'll use no flaps, and sometimes they'll use flaps because they use flaps to create extra lift when they're taking off.
Is that why every time I ever had a layover flight in Phoenix, we'd always have turbulence from the get-go, from like taking off immediately. They told us like, yeah, it's gonna
Yeah.
be, yeah.
Yeah, because the turbulence is caused by hot and cold air pockets, and so those hot and cold air pockets, the cold air pockets is dense air, the hot air pockets is thin air. So you're constantly going up, being bumped up and down because the thin air causes the airplane to drop a little bit, and the dense air causes the plane to go up a little bit.
He's right. You got accurate information.
I was actually, yeah, I know it's a little off topic from the course, but I was actually thinking after college going to flight school.
It's hard, man. You think college is stressful? Like it literally depletes your body.
Oh
'cause
yeah, well I mean
you're
it's like a
always
life or
flying
death
and you're
situation
always
sometimes.
studying.
Yeah.
And it's like so expensive.
Oh yeah, I
Well,
heard.
Embry-Riddle here in town does exactly that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like a flight school like 20 minutes away from me, so I was like, I've always wanted to try it. So
Like there's like I did a school in Washington, right? And they condense everything into 2 years, so it's very fast paced, but it's they try to get you through as soon as possible, and it's the cheapest one in Washington anyway, and it's still like I think 63,000 a year.
that's
So,
crazy. 63,000?
Yeah, and the one in Phoenix, the other flight school in Phoenix, it's all up front, and I can't remember how much it is, but it's a ridiculous. I think the one in Phoenix, the I can't remember what it's called, the ATP. I believe they try to get you done in like 6 months, but it's 90,000 and it's all up front.
Yeah, and then after getting like a pilot's license, you have to like, get your own plane and stuff if you're like doing it for just like recreation and stuff.
Oh, well, you can rent planes. That's the best way to go.
That's what the big companies are all doing now. They lease them. They don't
Are they
buy.
still doing that? So like brand new airlines like Allegiant and like those economical ones that are just getting started, are they all leasing their planes?
Often, yes.
Huh.
The planes that do cruising and tours, these especially modified 747s that hold 450 people, those are all leased.
Interesting.
Okay, we're gonna get started. Nobody else is coming in. That's great, and we've had a very good explanation of hot air and cold air. All right. Thank you very much for signing in, and we want to get started on our third lecture. This is about marketing research and strategy. We're going to talk a lot about some very important subjects that you're going to need to know for marketing purposes. And just before we start, a few reflections. Research looks for answers. There are easy ones and there are hard ones, but there may not be any answer but faith. We're looking for truth whenever we can find it, but it doesn't look for you. And since we're on semi-religious subjects, the secret of a good sermon is to have a good beginning and a good ending, and to have the two as close together as possible. And we contribute that to George Burns. Some of us spent long days and long hours in religious institutions hoping for that. Speaking of churches, I don't know whether this pastor has a lisp or not, but we're looking for greater kindness in the world whenever possible. And speaking of better things, this Zoom etiquette, we want to make sure that each of us behaves in this process. So you want to keep it on silent while we're working, and then open up when we have questions, which will be anytime you want.
Professor, you're going through the presentation right now?
Yes.
The lecture.
Yeah.
We still see you and not the lecture itself.
You're not seeing the lecture?
No.
Hold on. Hold on. That's okay. Why aren't you not seeing it? It's supposed to be there. It's over there. Okay, much better now. You see it now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good. So GCU, here's these words to the wise. This is what you missed. To tweet others as you would like to be tweeted. Okay, here's the Zoom etiquette chart that I was talking about. So let's keep the background noise as low as we can, and then we'll move forward. Okay, in today's lecture, we'll talk about the quiz number 1 review. I'll give you the answers. The quiz number 2 for topic 2 is coming up, due in 13 days, 11 days? 11 days. Participation exercise 1 is due this coming week, and then the number 2 the following week. We'll talk today about chapter 2 of the text about market research. All right. Let's talk about exercise 1. This is the one that's due this week. This is the perceptual map and positioning statement. You want to look at the textbook for this exercise. You're working for a company called Gray's Cookies. You're going to be responsible for creating this map. You want to look for 2 variables, your choices of what those variables would be that are most important to the consumer of this particular product. Then graph them against for this company and for other companies in similar businesses. So if you're representing Gray's, you certainly want to compare to Keebler or Chips Ahoy or other manufacturers. Now you're looking then at a comparison of the perception the customer has of these products. You want to then create a brand positioning statement using the template attached to this particular one and the one in the book and on the LoudCloud. And so you want to make this perceptual map and a positioning statement that fits there. What do you want the customer to have in his head about your product? Examples are here. And of course, we did several examples in last week's lecture. Any questions about this?
I have one.
Sure.
Okay, so we're supposed to do this on the Word document. I was just a little bit confused about how to make like a graph like that on a Word document. I've been taught before, but I haven't done it in such a long time. So I just wanted to ask you that question.
Well, what you want to be placing on there is text boxes that you'll fill in with the companies and the various criteria, the 2 variables that you want to use. So it's a Word document, so it should be straightforward in that sense. Don't they give you the crosshatch? Don't they give you the axes?
Yeah, they have the thing on.
All right, so that's all. Just label them.
Okay.
Put the companies in there based on what you think they should have as characteristics.
Okay, thank you.
I'm looking, there's no minimum or maximum, but I'm looking for, I'd like to have 3 companies, including your own.
All right, thank you.
That kind of thing.
I had a question. So
Of course.
for the 2 variables, can we use low calorie, high calorie, or like youthful, mature? Or are we not allowed to use those 3 that you mentioned already?
You can use any one you like.
Oh, okay.
Use these, make up some others. There was a in the last class when somebody was looking for taste, sweetness, for example. How does it taste? Does it say sweet or does it say taste sour? That kind of thing. So it's perfectly all right. Use your own. This is where you get creative. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. The second exercise is about New Coke. Now, this was a strategy solution for Coca-Cola in 1985. So we're looking backward. This is historically real situation where Coke was deciding among 3 different alternatives. 1, develop a new product to compete with, in that particular case, Pepsi. 2, do use your current products and not introduce a new product, or do nothing different at all, and pick the one that you think is best and explain why. And these are some of the criteria that you want to be talking about. This is a famous comparison. In 1985, Coke conducted a test because Pepsi was gaining market share on them. And they went to something like 62,000 customers across the United States and compared the taste of the two products. I mean, what they saw was two bottles look exactly like this, except no labels or colors. And in fact, I've conducted this test in marketing classes in college, and it's very interesting because there's no way to recognize what is what and who is who here. It's very interesting to be, and then you see my lovely wife behind me, so it's nice to have her here.
Looking for the note left here, the phone number.
The phone number. It's right here.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay. So they made this comparison and discovered that a majority of the people in the taste test preferred the taste of Pepsi. And what do? That's the essence of what you're going to be doing for this particular exercise. So the discussion questions for this exercise are, if you want to have a new product, how would you position it versus Pepsi and whatever remained in your product line? If you want to reposition the Coke or the Pepsi, how are you going to position them? And if you decided not to modify the product mix, what are you going to do to keep your being successful, considering that they already had these marketing tactics? And again, this is due on the 27th. Any questions?
This will be available to us on the 21st, is that what that means?
Yes.
So this assignment's kind of like the one that we just did, like where we have like a positioning statement, but we do it with like the new Coke and new Pepsi or whatever.
Well, you can do new Coke. You can do nothing. You have to decide what you want to do.
Okay, so I just need to do like another brand positioning statement.
Exactly. These are the kinds of answers. Pick out what you want to do. Tell me why you want to do that, and just tell me how you're going to position the products in order to make it as effective as possible.
Sounds good.
All right. And it's not hard to find out what Coke did, and there's a lot of analyses about what went wrong. Maybe you want to do something the same and tell why you can do a better job than Coke did, or do something different. Tell us why. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to do a little advertising for the American Marketing Association chapter that we have at GCO, and there's some value for you here in joining up with this organization, and that is that you get connected to professional marketers, and it helps you if you're going to look for a job in the marketing area. All kinds of resources, including certifications in marketing, which would help you. They're professional positioning for yourself, conferences and training and gaining new skills. You get industry publications, which help keep you up to date. So you want to go to ama.org to find out what they do. The local chapter extends that education from the classroom to the real world. You listen to people who do this for a living. There are all kinds of other organizations that will offer internships and job opportunities. There'll be, in October, there'll be a career fair that will be very, very effective and worked very nicely last year when I was there. And there's all kinds of other activities in 2020 and 2021 for you to behave in. You can learn more. You can join today. You can join the chapter. It has a Gmail address. You can use the link and go directly there, or contact one of the officers. So they're looking for members, and they're looking for officers as well. And I hope you find that interesting. It's worthwhile. In fact, some of our fellow teachers are going to be giving presentations during the school year. Okay, This is the quiz review, the quiz 1 review with the answers. I will go through this list. The first question, you may have a different order in the test as you took the test, but this is the one that was presented to me, and so we'll go in this way. The process of developing and executing strategies and tactics to sell a product to a very specific target segment is called micro-marketing. That's answer A. Number 2 is the concept of the marketing concept era was the 1960s to the 1970s. The process of gathering information about events and their relationship with the internal and external environment is environmental scanning. A nice hint from the words. Oops, skipped a few. Here you go. Which of the following is not an economic factor? That's, this is in this list, it's customers' data. The domestic product inflation and unemployment are also part of this. Marketing includes which of the following activities? And A, of course, is pricing a product. A detailed marketing plan includes all of the answers above. It turns out that some of you may have seen an answer here that had 2 situation analyses. I hope you weren't fooled by that. If you saw this and you may have been confused, let me know, give me a message, and I'll look at your grade and see that it didn't confuse you. In the late 1990s, the following was in 3rd place in the minds of worldwide customers, and that was MasterCard. American Express was number 1, Visa was number 2, MasterCard was 3, and Discover was 4. Which of the following options below enables marketers to understand how they made their goals of success throughout the plan and allows them to quickly recognize where they're off track? And that's key and performance indicators. Which is helpful for the marketers to evaluate between risk and reward, and that's the Ansoff matrix, which again should have been in your readings. Which of the following options is not used in the SWOT analysis? Remember, this is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The only one that doesn't belong there is segmentation. Answer D. Number 11, which is not a key strategic decision in formulate a marketing plan, is D again, creation of the logo and tagline. That's a tactic. It's not strategic, it's a tactic that we use and is important for marketing, but not as a strategy. What's the process that determines what you're going to control and analyze and use it for effective market planning? And that is market information system, the MIS. 13 is who is required to have multiple decision makers in order to appeal to multiple stakeholders for a single purchase. And that's B, that's B2B, business to business marketers. Which of the following key perspectives is not considered while performing the situation analysis? And that, of course, is C, which is the suppliers, involving customers, the company, and competitors. What is the process called when the wholesalers and manufacturers segment their markets much the same way as retailers? And that is C, also, B2B segmentation. And the last 5, which of the following refers to specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely, and pertains to formulation of organizational objectives? And that, of course, is B, which is SMART goals. The keys question, the answer is this: specific, measurable, and achievable, relevant, and timely. The rest of them is analyses. This is real goals. The process that examines the effect of marketing in the context of the external environment, including the economy and regulation, is B, of course, is macro marketing. 18 is government regulations, the economy, business trends, and whether are external factors. Answer B. And 19, few sellers control most of the sales. It's called an oligopoly. And 20 is social factors include demographics, culture, and norms. Okay, Your grades are listed. They should be in your grade book for everybody who took the test. Any questions? Okay. The subject of today's discussions are all about marketing research. We're going to talk about the definition, the 5 steps that are taken. Why is it important to the marketing, and why are ethics important in marketing research, and how does it get involved in it? Let's look at a case study. This will illuminate some of the things we'll talk about. You know, gasoline is a commodity. There's no real differences between what anybody sells you at the gas pump. Remember, small price changes can move people away from some brands to others. But remember, a price differential, a price premium for your products gives you a hell of a lot more profit, and that's what people are looking for in selling anything. So selling Chevron gas with this Techron additive is positioned that as an engine cleaner, even though research shows it has little value in the market. But Chevron charges a premium for it and advertises this concentrated cleanser. It turns out that every gas contains a cleanser, but they charge and get 10 to 15 cents per gallon more. And the answer that they asked, the question that is answered here is why? Why are people willing to pay a premium for something that is essentially the same as every other gas?
The brand name?
No, other people have brand names.
It makes them feel like they're taking care of their car.
But I couldn't hear you.
It makes them feel like they're taking care of
I'm losing you. You start off okay and then it drifts away.
it makes them feel like they can.
Same thing. I'm sorry.
I
Turn your.
think what he's
Yeah.
trying to
Say it again.
I think what he's trying to say is that it makes people feel like they're getting something extra, even though everything else has the same. Like just by the fact that, because not everybody knows fuel has cleaner in it, just the fact that they market that, people think they're getting something.
I think that's true. I think that's a good point. So thank you. So they think they're getting something extra.
The only way that they're able to even advertise that as something extra is because they have to give an explanation for their slightly higher price of gas than, like, for example, Safeway, or sometimes even like a store, like a grocery store that's not a chain, like in a small town, for example, because those, especially Safeway, they don't put any additives in their gas, and that's why it's cheaper. It's also worse for your engine. So that's why these companies have to have an excuse for why their gas is higher price and why it's better.
Well, understand that this is an example of positioning. It serves a market segment that thinks that having a cleaner engine enhances performance. So my question to you is that legal? They're giving, they're advertising, they're giving something that is achievable from everybody else.
It's legal, but it's not. Isn't necessarily ethical, because they could not be putting anything else in their fuel and still be advertising that, and no one's going to know, because you might get some whack dude that's going to test his gas, but most people aren't going to test what's in their gas. They're just going to put it in their car, and they're going to see that sign and be like, "Oh, I'm going to go there."
Well, you've raised a very good question.
So does that prove that like octane levels are just useless then? Like, you know, like 87, 89, whatever?
Well, octane is power generation. In other words, something with 89 is better than 87. And they can't lie about what they're delivering.
Okay.
All right? So that's a different story. But let me ask the question. If if they are providing the same thing as somebody else, but telling you that they're doing better, is that unethical? Or is it unethical to say you're doing something that you're not doing?
Well,
is one worse than the other?
I mean, so what they're probably doing is adding a tiny bit more of some ingredient that justifies their explanation of, oh, we can put it as a fuel system cleaner. So maybe they add, I don't know what they put in their fuel for that, but maybe they add slightly bit more to that. I mean, you could get down to even the teaspoon and they can put it on there. So I'm sure that they're doing something, because they couldn't get away with false advertisement, because I'm sure somebody would have come after them by now. But I'm sure that what they're claiming it's doing is not doing. I mean, with engines, I love cars and stuff, and like, even if you go to O'Reilly's, right, and you get like a fuel system cleaner, and you pump it, you dump it in your car, and it says, oh, it'll clean your injectors like new. Okay, well, it's not going to clean your injectors like new, but it's going to help. And so that, again, it's where like that extreme advertisement comes into play, where they're trying to grab your attention with a little bit of like exaggeration, but it's enough to get away with.
Anybody have a different slant on it than Carson?
I think my question would be, if everyone else is putting it in their gas too, don't they have the right to advertise it as well?
Sure.
They're just choosing not to. So what is it? Why is it so bad that Chevron is like, we're going to take this advantage when no one else is, but they could?
Remember, price is a big deal. So they're getting a higher price, more margin, but for a lower volume.
Yeah, because everyone has the right to set their own price. It's just if the consumer's going to do it.
Right.
So if all the other gas stations were like, we put that in our gas too, we'll just start advertising it, Chevron is going to lose business or have to drop their prices.
And some of them don't want to advertise.
Yeah.
And they want, certainly not to the extent that Chevron might. They have to, as somebody said, we have to justify the extra cost. And in today's world, there are a lot of people going to there's a website here in Phoenix, for example, that tells you where the cheapest gas is by gas station. And these people flock there. So it's one of the fun parts of doing business. Okay, so let's look at the building blocks of a successful business. This is what we talked about last week, which was the building of a business plan for a company. So the vision and mission, which we talked about, where do you want to be? And the executive team does that. What do you want to accomplish in the next year or so? That's where the objectives are, and the people who run the functions like sales and marketing and so forth, provide information to that. How do you want to accomplish this? You set objectives, and the functional teams work together to make that. And what are the detailed plans? What are you going to do specifically as tactics to produce these results? So that's the business plan outlook and outline. And so let's look at marketing research. Marketing research is the collection of data, information to add in making the kinds of decisions that you want to make. Marketers use the marketing research to understand the characteristics of the markets that they want to serve. They identify the groups of customers whose needs and wants fit best with their product. And then they assess the current situation, so what's going on, so they know how things are. Right now we're in the midst of a recession caused by the virus. What are we going to do about that? How do we react in that situation? How do we control that and make the most out of it that we possibly can? Okay. So the kind of marketing data that you can get to understand the market is like competition, the opportunities, what the potential threats are, the technological trends. You can hear in this the SWOT analysis. Then you look at the audience for this information, the consumer buying habits, demand estimations, and price sensitivity, and these are more sophisticated analyses. And then the company itself looks for its own weaknesses and strengths, what it understands about its own perception and positions, and how do they distribute, where do they sell their products to, and the feedback on what they have done, what their marketing mix has accomplished. So this is information that you have internally. All right, you gather data from principally two kinds of sources. One is what we call secondary data. That's information that somebody else, some company, some system, some person has put together for a different purpose. And the primary data is information collected directly from the researcher's own efforts. This is internal, usually, or it can be a company that you hire on the outside to answer specific questions for the company. So secondary data, outside, primary data, principally inside. Secondary data comes from a lot of sources. How about accounting and financial records? Customer records. I mean, everything you've sold over time tells you a lot about timing of customer purchases, the size of customer purchases, what do they buy and why they buy it, what they paid for it, and so forth. The company has experts on all of these situations. External sources include articles that are published, reports, studies, industry experts, industry trade associations, financial analyses. How about government sources? All kinds of government sources. Now, secondary data is, since you didn't produce it, you have to depend on the person who did, and that has to be analyzed carefully to make sure it's timely and accurate. Here are just some of the commercial data sources that companies have used, and there are dozens more. Arbitron tells you what people watch on television. Nielsen has done all kinds of segmentation work along with its ratings work and so on. What kind of data they pick up? I mean, this is one that I used to use as an example, but here are the states in the United States for their beer consumption on the basis of per capita, per head. And it looks like the northern states like Montana and the Dakotas and Wyoming are big users of beer. California may like more wine, for example. New York does, Washington does, because they produce a lot of wine. So maybe beer is not as popular. But these are the kinds of data that you can pick from commercial sources. This came from a trade association. Everybody seems to be calling me right now. Secondary data, advantages are the work's done. You don't have to go get it. Somebody else has already done it. The disadvantage is that there's a lot of data and you got to go sift through it. Certainly, it saves you time, money, and effort because that somebody else did it, but it can be out of date. It's got to be timely. It can answer questions without the need for your own primary research. Gee, that's helpful, but it doesn't always answer the things you really need to know. It offers a broad view of the industry and the market and the firm. You've got to make sure that how they measure, how they gather, how they present matches what you want. Now, it helps uncover some questions that you want to ask for your primary research, but again, you got to understand the credibility of the sources. Now, there are two different kinds of primary research. One is qualitative. This is open-ended research, better understanding the customer, how the customer thinks. Includes things like focus groups, interviews, observational studies. The quantitative research involves numbers or statistics and includes things like surveys, behavioral and psychological research, analytics, and experiments. So qualitative is we're understanding the customer's reasons, and we got to talk to the customer to get it. Quantitative stuff is numbers and stats, and they come in different ways. Now, primary data, it's very specific to what you're asking. That makes it narrow. That's the negative. Provides it in a timely fashion, but it can also take a long time to get. It meets your research objectives if it's done right, but it can be very expensive. It can be gathered, measured, and presented in the most relevant way to what you need, but you got to make sure you don't make the errors that can skew the results. That's probably where the greatest amount of mismatch occurs. This is where the biggest answers are, the biggest errors are, and therefore misleading situations. Either purposely or not purposely. So be very careful whenever you get information that you even produce yourself that's presented accurately and characterized properly. You can keep this information for yourself. You don't give it away to anybody else, but it can be too expensive for small companies to do. Okay. I haven't got a call all day. I've gotten 4 in the last 5 minutes. So the methods for collecting data are involved in many different ways. You can see here, it can be checkoffs, it can be phone messages, it can be surveys, it can be online. The data collection methods fit what you want to get out of it. Those methods include mail, through the mail system, telephone surveys and interviews. Takes really trained people to do this well. In-person interviews, surveys, interviews, focus groups, and other methods. Online website assistance that you can get for data collection, all of the things that you can do above. And mobile devices assist data collection, things like websites. But mobile devices in and of themselves have a different kind, a different level of value. Let me give you an example. Today with smartphones, you have location devices in your phone. So people can know where you are at any particular time. Well, let's say you're driving in a neighborhood and you might be near a beer distributor. I can send you on your phone a special that you can buy beer within 2 blocks of where you are right now for a very low price. All you have to go see is Joe Schmo's beer distributor and buy all you want at half price. That's the beauty of the mobile device and this location capability. So modern marketing is getting really, really very, very interesting. It's the same way that you had this information for your exercise. This is a perfect primary data collection method. Pepsi was gaining market share. Coca-Cola was concerned. They ran a test with 60,000+ people trying bottles that they couldn't recognize. And it turned out that more than half of the people who took the test preferred the taste of Pepsi to Coke. Now, of course, the bottles looked the same, so they couldn't tell. They just tasted and see which one was. It turns out that Pepsi is sweeter than classic Coke. So that was the impetus for what they got into when they started this process. Primary data that showed their competitor was preferable in taste, and that the difference was that it was sweeter. And that's how it was described when those people who gave the opinion were interviewed. Focus groups are extremely important because they are both a participatory exercise and an observational one. You can see that there are people in here who are asking questions of consumers who are picked carefully in order to get either a variety of people and backgrounds or to understand what a particular segment is thinking about a product. And then you have experts and people who know the industry who are observing this. You can see there's a camera there. It's being recorded, so we're going to be studied by other experts. So we have a variety of observations of people being asked questions about products and services, who are being asked about what is important to them, who are being asked to deliver as much information as they can to guide the company's marketing actions. Now, how do you contact people who are valuable to understand? The mail questionnaire we talked about. The telephone interview can be very expensive and time-consuming. Personal interviews, even more expensive and time-consuming. Online interviews, less expensive, but also takes up a good deal of your time. Here's a situation when on a particular TV show takes a poll about what do you think is going to happen in the next segment, and it becomes a very interesting process for you to understand. Now, what becomes important when you do these data is that you're going to have statistics, and those statistics require a sampling procedure. because you can't ask everybody in the universe what they're going to think, because the cost is just prohibitive. So you have to take a sample. Now, what kind of sample do you take? You can take a sample that's based on probability of what's in the sample matches what's in the universe, based on, say, gender, on sex, on the issues like education, income, demographics, all kinds of interesting differences. The first one is this probability sample, that what is in the sample matches your universe. The second type is the non-probability, where you just maybe wait at a corner and ask people as they walk by, and you're at the mercy of circumstance. I gave an example in the previous class. I said, maybe you're selling something that's, let's say, titillating or even pornographic, and here comes a religious group that walks by. You may get an entirely different answer from them than you would get from the universe of people. And those are the kinds of things you have to be very careful about in sampling. So a probability sample is one in which every element in the population has a known statistical likelihood of being selected. For example, if I know that 51% of the people in the world are female, maybe I want my sample to be 51% female. Now, on the other hand, a non-probability sample is we're making no attempt to make it representative of the greater population. Now, the internet does at least the same sort of situation. You have the unrestricted sample. Anyone with a computer and a modem can fill out the questionnaire, and you get people who like doing that for a living. Then the screened internet sample. That's where you get quotas based on desired sample characteristics, like, as I said, 51% female. Then you get the recruited sample, where I actually go out and seek people who are pre-recruited or pre-identified so that they all qualify to participate. Internet surveys are the way that people are going in great numbers. It's very rapid to get started. It's real-time reporting back. The costs are much lower. You can personalize the questions to the exact situation. It turns out that respondents like working on the internet rather than on hard copy. It happened here. Yesterday, I got a call from a political ad doing a survey on the comparison of two candidates for a particular office. My wife, at the same time, got a survey from the local car dealer because she had taken her car in for service. That survey was 4 pages, very small type, almost 200 questions. You know what she did with it? She tossed it. But I spent 10 minutes online answering a dozen questions or so, and they got a lot of information, and they got it quickly and very efficiently. And the other thing about the internet is that you can contact people who are hard to reach. Okay, important thing to remember, the 5 steps in approaching market research. First, define the problem. What am I trying to find out? What am I trying to understand? Okay, it can be something as simple as what will attract a certain type of customer? What do they think is the most important thing in this particular product line? Or it can be, how can I get them to pay a premium, for example? You develop a research plan. What kind of systems will I use? Do I have information myself? Can I do this internally, or I have to hire somebody from the outside? Then you go about collecting the data. How do you get it? That's part of this research plan. Then you develop the findings. You got to analyze what you had, use statistical methods to make sure it's significant. And so you understand accurately what you found. You use that information to guide what you take and how you change your marketing mix. So all of this fits together. Trust me, you will be tested on these 5 actions. Okay, the 5-step approach: find the problem, set the objectives, and understand what the outcomes might be. Develop the plan, pick the things that you will use, the systems you will use to get that information. restrict it, constrain it. You don't want it to get everything in the entire world. You just want some certain information. And you want to determine the best way to get it. Collect that, that relevant information, both using secondary and primary sources, so you understand everything about the problem. Develop the findings. This is analyze it, draw conclusions, and present the findings accurately. As I said, that's the place where much of this breaks down. It's got to be done accurately. What ends up happening in many situations here is that the researcher is saying, gee, I didn't fulfill my objectives. I might as well tell them I did. Well, when they don't, then it takes them in the wrong directions when they have to take actions. And so you want to make recommendations based on those findings, implement those actions, and evaluate how well you did. Is this an improvement or not? Okay. Based on market research, you find that it's difficult for men to shave a certain area of their neck. Well, here is a device that was believed to designed to overcome that difficulty. This little rotating head, and it swivels and it rotates, and it makes it easier to get to this difficult to shave place. So a good example of positioning yourself against something that people have found to be a problem. Okay, any questions about what we talked about? Okay, everybody clear? Good. We're going to talk about the kinds of questions that go into these surveys. There are all kinds of different types. These are the principal ones. We have what we call the dichotomous ones. These are the ones that give you, only a yes-no answer. So these particular ones were used by the people advertising and investigating for American Airlines. It makes it easy. One subject, one product, one service. So in arranging this trip, did you contact American Airlines? Yes or no? That tells them whether they're getting enough information about those services that are available.
So dichotomous is just yes or no questions?
Yes. They're black and white, if you will. There's an extreme, but only the extremes. Okay? A dichotomy, is a split. There's a separation between. And there's nothing in between. It's not like yes, no, maybe, I don't know. It's yes or no. So the multiple choice questions are obvious. Who's included in the trip? Now, these are probably the most common kinds of questions in all kinds of surveys, and that's what is called the Likert scale. The Likert scale takes you about the extremes, but there's a whole set in between the extremes. So what's your level of agreement with the following statement? And they strongly agree or strongly disagree. And there's moderate ones in between. I'm indifferent, or I agree to some extent, that kind of thing. I gotta say, this is the most common one that's used in these kinds of surveys. The semantic differential is a set of questions that give you, again, a spread, but there's more than one in the sense of what do you describe with American? Is it large or small, experienced or inexperienced, modern or old-fashioned? And it gives you some feeling for how people think and therefore behave vis-a-vis that particular product or service. We come to some of our favorite subjects about the airlines, and of course that is something like this importance scale. Is this food issue important to you as a customer? Is that something that is critically important or not important at all? Again, looks like the Likert scale, doesn't it? But it's important to you and tells you if it is something important in their decision. Now, here's where you start doing the ratings. You've asked the question about whether it's important or not, but when you get it, do you like it? And that's the next stage in this process. Is it excellent or good or poor? And gives you some feeling, if it's very important, this is a question you really want to hear. hey, my food is terrible, but it's very important to me, I don't think of American Airlines positively.
Professor?
Yes.
Question. So about the Likert scale, I've been told like while using that like just in general to not choose like the indifferent answer just because it doesn't really help like the person receiving the survey. Do you believe that's true, or do you think there's still some inherent worth in that?
I'm going to give you the classic answer. It is absolutely true, and it's exactly wrong. Okay, here's the situation. You have to be honest with what you tell somebody. And that's one of the most important things in these kinds of classification questions, where you have a situation. If it's really important to you, then you would give an extreme answer. The food stinks and it's really important to me. If you don't give a damn, tell them you don't give a damn. And so answering the question, your best situation is honesty. And if you're indifferent, you're indifferent. But you're right, it doesn't tell them anything. It just adds to the burden of the situation. So you're right, and who cares kind of a thing.
Okay, got it.
From a standpoint of a researcher, which I have done, I want to know on average where we fall in any particular situation. Now, I was doing research for a guy who was trying to sell a medical solution to diabetes. And the Likert scale questions were extremely important. If this was something that, say, was cheaper than insulin, say it was faster acting than injections, maybe this was something that you could use more often than insulin, and you didn't have to be afraid of. Those were really important things that I needed to know. So we asked those kinds of questions in the Likert scale. Is it important to you? Is cost important to you? Is the speed of reaction important to you? Definitely, not at all. So if used in the proper way, they're the most illuminating questions. Answered in a prejudicial way, they're useless to everybody. All right. If you could buy tickets online, is that a good thing? And this, you have this intention to buy. An intention to buy is a big deal because you want to find out if people are going to, spend the money. That is the most difficult question in the entire world, asking somebody for money. And when I used to train salespeople, and one of the things you learn to do is you never ask, will you buy? Because there's only one answer to that. It's called no. All right? So what you ask is you ask some question that leads you to the answer, or that like you're already assuming that it's positive. For example, do you want it in red or green? Do you want it delivered on Tuesday or Thursday? If you buy two, you get a 15% discount on the second one. Do you want that? I never asked for the order, did I? I just assumed that the order was already in place.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so for example, what you have right here, internet access on American Airlines. So if they're asking all these questions to their consumers or the people that are flying on their planes, how are they making money? Because a majority of people fly economy or their business class, which really is not much out of a business. And now they're providing in-flight entertainment. So they're really only selling to those few people that have to send emails or have to do work on their computer. So how are they actually making money? Because they're having to pay money for the internet. So how is that? If they're using this process right here, how are they benefiting themselves in that case?
Would you like a really technical answer or a very simple answer?
Either one.
The simple answer is fill the plane. That's the key. And that's why their pricing, it changes so much. For example, if you're the first one on an airplane and you want to choose a seat, you're going to pay the most. You're the last person on that airplane, you'll probably pay the least.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, we showed this to a group of customers that were flying. We were flying from Chicago to Denver. And I looked at my ticket and I realized that I had paid more than I expected to, even though we had a service that, you know, bought our tickets for us. So I compared to my buddy that I was traveling with. I compared it to the woman across the aisle. And somebody heard us in the seats in front of us. We had 6 different tickets and they were all 6 different prices. So I started asking, when did you buy your ticket? Well, I bought my ticket a month ago. Well, I'm on a business trip. I just bought it yesterday, you know, and I'm one of the last people on. So the prices varied from, and this is no joke, from $230 to $1,100 for the same flight from the same airport on the same plane.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question then, because flights right now though, so that makes sense as far as like what you're saying, but at the same time, if you look at flights right now, like I bought a ticket to go out to Missouri, right? It's usually like $400 to the city I want to go, but I got a ticket for like $272, so like almost like half of what it usually costs. Okay, so if that's true, that prices are varied on demand like that, then how does that make sense? Because that's the opposite. They're having less demand, and so they're bringing the prices down. So if you're saying that if you're the last one on a plane and you pay less, that's the opposite of what's going on right now with airline tickets. So how does that?
Remember, there's a little problem currently. It's called the virus.
Well, sure.
The maximum number of seats is half of the plane.
Sure, I understand that.
All right.
Well,
so now they almost can't make money. They can't charge enough to make this worthwhile. They're trying to stay in business, just get cash flow.
But are you sure it's half the plane? Because my flight was full.
Well, then they were breaking rules that they said they were not going to break.
Like I flew an American, and they won't give you in-flight beverage service because of social distancing. But it was a plane with 3 and 3. I had 2 people right next to me all the way to Chicago, and it was a row of 1 and 2 to Springfield, and there was 2 people right next to each other right across from me. We had to wear masks, but
yeah, the airlines changed the ruling like just very recently to like allow, well, certain airlines did, not all of them, but to allow the 3 people per instead of 2.
Hawaiian is doing some social distancing on their flights, but yeah, that's what I think is hilarious. It's like I can be smashed up against somebody, but as long as I have a mask on, I'm fine. But then they won't serve me anything because of that.
To get you back on the question though,
yeah,
under normal circumstances,
sure,
best way to make a lot of money is incremental pricing.
Sure,
incremental pricing means I don't care what you pay after I get enough people on the plane to cover my costs. I'll give you an example. We ran a contest to raise money with a local restaurant. If I could guarantee the owner 30 people to walk in the door, he would give us a 20% discount and pay us back in cash. And I looked at his restaurant and I realized that 30 was about a third of his capacity. So that told me that his cost for that restaurant full was about 30 people. So we were giving him a baseline. Everything he sold over that was profit. I was covering his cost. So he didn't give a damn for what else happened because he was making money on all of it. So I was guaranteeing him a profit that way. And I talked to him about it and he agreed. We worked out the numbers and it came up to about that. So the key was I covered my costs, my salaries of my waitresses and cooks and people like that, the cost of the food, the cost of the air conditioning, the cost of the water, the cost of the things I had to buy to make things work. I mean, the propane for the gasoline stoves, those kinds of things. So I was covering his costs. He was guaranteed to make money, and a lot of it. But he was willing to give me a part of it. Got it? That's what we call incremental pricing. And that's what happens on airplanes. They cover their costs. They almost don't care what you pay. Your profit. Now it's a little, as I say, it's much more difficult now because their capacities are reduced. First of all, a lot of people are not traveling. Even with what Peyton said, there are not as many passengers around anyway, and they're using social distancing. So what do? They throw away a service that costs them very little in order to make up a few bucks. Hey, listen, in the last 5 years, you know what the airlines have made? You can find out exactly what their profits were in the United States by how much they charged for changing reservations, for extra bags. All those extra fees are all they made as profit. Everything else was covered their cost. Everything else. So they made $1.6 billion in 2018, and all of it was those extra charges. Strange, isn't it? All right, let's go forward. This can get very interesting and very intricate, but got to be a nut like me. All right. Here is this completely unstructured, fill a hole, right? What's your opinion? I'm not even asking you what you're going to talk about. I'm asking you to just tell me what spills from your guts. These can be very illuminating. Some people just love to write. Other people will say, good, fine, that kind of stuff. But it gives you a lot of information. Word association. When I say airline, what do you think of? When I say American, what do you think of? When you say travel, I hate it, that kind of stuff. Sentence completion, very much similar to those. Here I'm trying to find what the most important thing about flying is. Well, maybe it's getting there on time, or maybe it's the food, or maybe more often than not, it's cost, whatever the price is. Now here's a story completion where they set up a scenario and you fill out how you feel about that certain thing. In this particular case, does that make you feel modern or comfortable, or that gives them a feeling of up to date? These things are very important, and I'll tell you why. People Airlines noticed a very important thing, that they were getting a lot of complaints about their service. So they ran a question like this, and they're asking, how did you feel when you pulled down the tray in front of you? The dirtiness of that tray translated to concern about engine maintenance in people's minds. So they were meticulous about cleaning the pull-down trays. Not because they did anything different about their engine maintenance, it's that the people perceived the cleanliness of the pull-down tray was analogous directly to the safety of the engines. Crazy, isn't it? But that was extremely important. Even more important than the price, which is what people priced its work on. Here's one that's very similar, but here you're asking a specific question about the food. Fill in the blank. Ever seen questions like this in surveys that you've taken? Yes, no, maybe? They're not as common as they used to be. Okay, this is much more a perception test, and it gives you no instructions other than to make up a story. What do you see here? What do you perceive?
Are you asking?
I sure am.
I mean, he looks like he's looking at something that isn't her, so.
So what does that tell you?
He's not interested.
He's distracted.
He's distracted. Okay, what else does these observations tell you? You've made some assumptions, obviously, with this.
I mean,
like this could be used differently for like a lot of things, because this is probably just a stock photo. So like you could instantly just say, oh, these people having to walk outside their house, or you could say these people are on traveling, observing like all these attractions and stuff, you know?
Okay.
Some sort of like date. I mean, they might just be down for restaurants and things like that, because I mean, in the background, it kind of looks like it's more people like sitting down, and there's like lighting and awnings and things like that. So they're probably scoping out a spot to eat, I'm thinking.
Okay. What else? I mean, I heard some assumptions underlying some of those responses. What are your assumptions about this particular picture and what it represents? I'm trying to be as non-committal as possible. I don't want to interfere with your thinking here.
They both have like different colored lenses, so they're seeing through something.
Good
so
observation.
maybe
Good.
Has something to do with that.
You think it might, huh?
Yeah.
Abby, I thought that was astute. Good.
There is a different color difference between the two. I mean, there is the red like in his sleeves, but like I mean, the blue is the blue and the black are slightly darker than the red like with her. I'm not sure if that says anything, but
What does that mean?
Theming. I like if it were like trying to put like a different a dichotomy, if you will, like of the two.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because in the previous class, somebody observed that they were both wearing a color of red, and therefore they thought that this was a couple because of that. How do you feel about that observation?
I mean, I just was thinking they were a couple because she has, I mean, like they're like have their arms wrapped around each other. But I mean, I guess you could kind of see that. But also like, with like photography and especially with art and stuff like that, colors are definitely like utilized to draw out certain emotions and feelings. So I mean, most of the color in this picture is red, even from like the background all the way up.
Okay.
So if that has something to do with whatever emotion they want the red to bring out, because I mean, it can be different things. It can be anger, it can be love. So it just depends on what kind of emotion they're trying to portray as what the photographer is trying to portray.
Okay. The observation about the different colored lenses led somebody in the previous class to talk about that this might have been an ad for Oakley with its interchangeable lenses. So that was another observation. But somebody said something very interesting right at the beginning. You said that he was less interested than she.
Yeah, I mean that's how. Okay, so I saw that you put make up a story, and I was just thinking that he was looking at something that isn't her, and she's just kind of accepting it at this point. But that's just my mind making.
You think
she's
accepting, or she just doesn't notice?
Either she doesn't notice, or because I mean, look at that hand. Like that is not a comfortable position for a hand to be like inside of his arm. Like I promise you, she's not enjoying herself in that situation. So yeah.
And I think somebody said the other day, looked at this and said, "Hey, he's eyeing some other girl."
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm. Yeah.
I see some agreement there. Yeah. Okay. He might have seen something more attractive, or at least to him, anyway.
You notice though, she's smiling, and he's not.
I was gonna mention about the Oakley thing that you said. I thought that was kind of a good point to make, because the clothes they're wearing, there's no branding, very, very plain clothing, super plain clothing. So really the only thing that, I mean, the first thing that really comes to eye is going to be these sunglasses that they're wearing. Because I mean, it's in the very middle of the picture.
Right.
With that.
But, it's interesting. My son wears Oakleys because he plays a lot of tennis. So he has an Oakley colored lens, which he pops into his glasses, that makes the yellow ball stand out more sharply. So it's easier to see. That's the first thing that I saw when I looked at these. It reminded me of going to the U.S. Open and noticing that the Oakley had one for baseball, they had one for football, they had one for tennis, and all kinds of things like that. So it's very interesting. So he made some great observations. the most common observation about this is his indifference. That they are a couple and he's eyeing the competition and she is oblivious to this. So it's very interesting that there's a consistency here, but you brought up some other things. So this is the kind of thing that you can do to test. In this particular case, as pointed out, this might be a stock photo or something specific that people are trying to find out.
Well, as fun as this is, like, I mean, I don't mean to be the teacher here, but like, how exactly can we apply this like back to like marketing? Like if this were like a stock photo we were supposed to use for Oakley, like, and let's say that we went with my situation, which is like he's off looking into some like that like if he's looking at some other girl that's not her, then that like makes the audience either of women look at that different. Like what exactly does that do? Like if we use this photo.
Well, you want me to answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay, or we can ask the class. But my reaction to your question is, maybe I'm selling those glasses, and maybe this is not the best picture to use for selling those glasses. Even though both of them are handsome people, even though both of them appear to be happy or satisfied, you saw a theme in this that said they're not nice to each other. They're not happy with each other.
Yeah.
So if I were using this as an ad, I would say, I don't want to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that would be my take on it. It doesn't mean it's right. It's just, this is all personal. And the beauty of this is to get the kinds of different ideas that you all came up with, which to indicate, what this actually means. So I love the discussion. That's the whole point, is to get this out of us. Okay. One of the main subjects of advertising and marketing, especially market research, is ethics. Now, there are codes of ethics in most businesses. They come from trade associations who will set a standard for the way people will act, and that they have to accurately identify and accurately represent what they find. As I told you, it is almost always in the step that's required an analysis of the data where ethics raises its ugly head. Because the researcher wants to satisfy the customer and wants to tell them that we've solved the problem, or we've determined the problem, we've answered the research question clearly, when sometimes that's not necessarily true. When that mismatch occurs, you then do actions which may not fit the market and therefore aren't as effective as they could be, and you fail to get to your sales objectives. And that's the key to all this. So that's where my examples of unethical research practices come in. My history is I hired a very strong, high quality, famous research company, and I asked them several research questions that I had to get answers to. Can I do this in order to get attention of the customer? And so how will I do it? And what is the best way to do it? And they came back and said, this is the way to do it. It came right from the research. Well, when I looked at the research, it didn't tell me that at all. That's what I wanted to hear, but it didn't appear in the numbers. What we got was this indifference, just like you described with the middle answer. And we were lost, and we spent a lot of money for the research, and we fortunately didn't do the actions that they pretended because they weren't going to work. We were lucky, all right? That's the way life is. People tend to want to please people rather than to tick them off, and that would have ticked me off when I spent so much money, $250,000 to do research. Is this true? Does everybody lie?
Yes.
Did you just lie?
No.
Here's the issue. If everybody lies, then we're not going to get accurate information, are we?
No.
If we get inaccurate information, we're going to use it in the wrong way, aren't we?
Yeah.
Correct.
So the issue is we have to determine how true what we have is. So we be as objective as possible You use it, situations that don't identify companies, so we don't get those prejudices. There's a lot of things that come through here. Much of this depends on reputation, and of course, Shakespeare has said everything there is to be about character and reputation. Who steals my purse steals trash. It's his something, nothing, 'twas mine, 'tis his, and has been slave to thousands. But he that filches from me my good name, my character, my reputation, robs me of that which not enriches him and makes me poor indeed. Now, there's no question in the world that one of the biggest liars in literature is Iago. But this is a truth. Okay, so let's go back and look at our essential questions for today's discussion. What's marketing research? Give me a definition that you can use.
It's like researching all the analytics and everything about like your consumers and how to sell to them better and finding new consumers as well.
What are the 5 steps to a marketing research process?
The first one, you have to identify the problem.
Define the problem, develop a research plan, collect relevant data, develop findings, and take marketing actions.
Somebody wrote it down.
I did.
And you got cheers from some of the members here. Why is it important?
Why are those steps important?
Well, why is marketing research important?
Because you want to know what you're advertising. And
Well,
you want to know, you also want to know the market in which you are selling in.
And the best way to market your product.
Right.
Exactly.
How can I apply the marketing mix most effectively to those people who are most attracted to my products? Why are ethics important in marketing research?
You want to have a good company brand or like a good company image. Like if people know that they're buying from bad people, then they probably won't want to buy from you.
Gee, you tell me that people like to buy from liars?
I mean, I usually no, unless they really need
Usually
it.
no. However, there are some very important concepts here.
Yeah.
Ethics, though. Where can we have ethical problems in marketing research?
Well, okay. I would say that it depends on what was the thing that we went over last time, like a company's like line of what their purpose is, like what did we call that before?
Vision and mission.
I mean, Scientology, for how screwed up that is, like has a code of ethics and they stand by it. It's just a very weird and bad code of ethics. Yeah. So I feel like for the consumers who consume Scientology or consume like all these companies, like are relying on the organization as a whole to follow by the code of ethics and maintain their reputation. Is that somewhat?
Okay, that's one. I agree with you. Now it's one part.
It kind of goes back to
where else can ethics come in here?
It also kind of goes back to what we were talking earlier in the lesson about like the gas companies and stuff. Because if you think about it, like oil companies, like it's bad for the environment. Like science proves that it's bad for the environment. And so they have they try to have a marketing image that, oh, we're a good oil company. You know, like you see like a lot of like big gas companies saying, oh, we're trying to find ways to make our gas like less polluting, or like we're trying to like cut down like emissions and stuff, because like in today's age people are actually concerned about the environment.
Okay.
So your question was I'm sorry.
What else?
Your question was how do ethics play a role in marketing research?
Correct.
Well, just one of the things I just kind of thought of like an unethical like something unethical that certain companies could do marketing wise is like let's say like a certain area, a certain region buys one product over the other or over the competition more so than other regions. And then when they do, let's say like a marketing survey or things like that, and then they really only point to like said regions that they're more popular at, the results and like public view of it is going to be better than their competitor, and then if they release that information or use that information, then yeah, or like advertise upon that information rather.
You know, as I said, one of the areas of greatest lack of ethics is when you present findings that are not reflective of what the information was that you got.
Mm-hmm.
You have to reflect accurately what these, and I think that's what you're saying, is reflect it accurately with all the goods and the bads, so that you understand what the parameters are.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. But that, look at this and very carefully analyze this in your own minds. We got to make sure we get the best information so we can do the best things for our company. All right, moving right along. Difference between primary and secondary data.
Primary data, you collect yourself, like you do the research yourself. And secondary is like you get it from an external source. So like somebody else either does the research or you just like grab whatever has already been like known.
Good, good, very cogent. What's the difference between qualitative and quantitative research?
Qualitative goes over categories and basically like certain labels, while quantitative is more numbers based and like talks about like certain statistics.
Okay, I'm not so sure about qualitative. Quantitative is right.
Qualitative is the reason, or like seeing from the consumers what the product.
Yeah, this is more human behavior. It's more of the way people think about the company, or the product line. It's more of the human understanding and reasoning that goes into it. Where quantitative research is actual numbers. You know, the survey says 36% people feel that's way, 20% feel that way, 15% feel that way, and the other 10 didn't care, right? And those are the kinds of things that you make this difference with. But qualitative, you can say, hey, you know, the tendency is toward this situation. Okay, moving right along, we're almost done. Let's apply all the stuff we discussed. Is it okay to use marketing research to identify vulnerable segments of consumers for a product or service? Now look at that as a separate sentence. And then secondarily, here's an example of teenagers who might be approached for tobacco and alcohol usage. So those are two questions. Think about the first one.
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course you can.
What do you exactly mean by vulnerable segments?
But by what? I didn't quite get that word.
Sorry, vulnerable segments?
Vulnerable. Somebody who's susceptible, who could be enticed to do something. Now we can then add on the second question, which is it's not to their benefit. Okay, and that's another interpretation of the word vulnerable. Okay, so take it in two pieces. Is the first completely off the table? Or is it, because of the second question, you know, a terrible thing to do? I'm complicating this terribly. And the reason is very simple. It is complicated.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that by saying vulnerable, you're basically using people's like areas where they may or may not buy something or may or may not use something to get more profit.
Buying is the issue. I'm trying to entice somebody to buy something.
Yeah, and so you're
in itself bad.
Yeah, so that you're going to use the things that, like, say for example, somebody has a shopping addiction. You're going to use, if you're a clothing marketer, you're going to use different things to try to entice people to buy things and buy clothes, correct?
Yeah.
So is that ethical?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm asking.
I would say no. Like in some cases, I think you see, I don't know if any of you guys have seen the commercial where like the tobacco products, they like say kids go into a store and they pick out all the colorful things and like all of them are tobacco products. And all these kids don't know that they're tobacco products, but they are, and they can't even have them because it's not legal. And so in that case, no, I don't think it's ethical.
I understand. That makes sense.
Okay, this question can be answered by like a lot of different ways because one, it just says, is it okay? So you can, so I'm going to use the two ways that I've thought about this, which is one, legally. Legally, I don't think there is a law prohibiting this act, but ethically, like I said, with the whole reputation and like a code that a company must uphold, I think that is a shady tactic, and it has been used in a lot of different cases, from class action lawsuits to just false advertising, or just pointed advertising, and it has resulted in basically just tyrannical like companies taking control and not operating well. So I would say legally there is no legal law I think prohibiting that, but ethically it will damage reputation in the long term.
I think in the end it circles back to like the other question about, I guess, morality and a business and a corporation having moral ethics. I think in the end, if you're like a company and most of them in the majority have a way of just earning profit, and it's not like legally how he was saying, I think it's Ryan was saying, it's not like, it's not legally wrong, but I think you should go for it, do it, you know, do your research, you know, it could be bad for people, but I think it would just be coming like beforehand and knowing that it's morally wrong in a way of what you are doing, and that can also come back as an, I guess, like a lot of lawsuits, like for example, teenagers and tobacco, that comes with a lot of that. And so I think just knowing that if you're doing something morally wrong, it's going to affect your business in some way, in some area. So I guess it's okay, but I also don't think it's like a smart move to come about it as well.
I think
That's a
I wanna
very,
add on.
thank you very much for the question.
So adding on to that, like, I feel like from my point of view, like if I was in a position where like a potential tactic was targeting towards teenagers, like using vulnerable segments, you have to, like, for me, I would have to think on a personal scale, would I want to see, like, if I had teenagers or something, would I want them to see that, you know, as an advertiser? Like, would you want to see that on the market? And it's just like, so for there, like, yeah, you know, companies have a right to advertise whatever they want. Like, that's the point of a free market. But like, when you think about like the market in itself, you kind of have to let it like speak for itself, and like people will put their money where their morals are, where their like viewpoints are, you know?
So I have a perfect example of what Colin just said, or about this whole like tobacco thing. Take credit cards, for example. I'm in college. I get mail after mail of credit card companies.
Oh yeah.
Trying to get me to subscribe for another credit card or get another credit card. That is a perfect example because they are targeting a certain age where they know students are going to want to spend money and they know they don't have money. So
exactly, yeah.
Example of using, you know, unethically using, because I mean, really, is that ethical to target them? Because they're literally knowing that the students are going to get into credit card debt, and that could really mess them up in their future.
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword, because like I get mail in from the banks all the time, and like before I started college, it was like, now it's time to start thinking about like student loans and stuff, and like I didn't plan on going into like student loans. I'm blessed enough to have my parents like cover for it, but like not a lot of people are like that, and it's just like, for that, it's just extremely unethical. But then there is also another benefit. There is somewhat of a benefit to it, because I also got a mail. It was like there's like student like credit cards and stuff. Now, yeah, you know, sometimes like the return rates and stuff are like really high and stuff, but it is a good idea. as a college student to now start thinking about like building credit and stuff, because I got ads for like credit cards and stuff. It's a good time, you know, buy stuff like food, supplies and stuff, and then just pay it off little by little. So by the time you get out of college, you actually have like a good credit score, so you can apply for loans and mortgages and all that other stuff.
All right, Colin, let me ask the question in general then.
Mm-hmm.
Is it unethical for a bank to send you a solicitation for a credit card?
No.
It is.
I don't think so.
You're
Just
misusing.
You have a right to, if you want it or not. Like if you say I want to go into large sums of debt, that's your problem, you know? Like they're
Yes, but they're targeting a certain age though.
So?
Well, they know that
What you do with it is your business.
Thank you.
Okay, but that could be the same thing for tobacco products.
Well, that's illegal.
It's illegal now.
Okay, but even if it is illegal, though, it's their choice to buy it. I mean, that really.
No, they can't buy it. The seller is at fault there.
Well, sure.
Illegal for the youngster to buy.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Like, especially they just moved the tobacco law to like 21, and like there's a smoke shop like right by my house. They still sell to 18-year-olds. They just like don't give like people like receipts and stuff, so they don't like get tracked by the feds and stuff.
That's
So,
illegal.
yeah.
All right, turns out to be one of the most interesting conversations. All right, let's move a little. I want to let you guys get out of here a little early because it's getting late. Okay, read the text quickly. Anything wrong?
This is Coca-Cola.
Somebody noticed. Very good. We've seen that logo so often that we miss this. Often we will leave it and not see it. This is what happens. This ad actually appeared.
Did it? Wow.
And Coke was really upset.
That's incredible.
All right, any more questions? Now, there's a couple of things I want to remind you of, and that is I need to have from you by this end of this week your subject, product, or product line for the benchmark series of assignments. Because it's due on, the first one is due on Sunday, so we need to know what you're doing, and I'm trying to avoid duplications. So I got about half the class that has given me instructions, but the half that hasn't needs to come back and give me that information.
So you want us to post it on the questions to instructor forum? Because I see some people doing that.
Forum, either one.
Okay.
Either one.
Can you
I'm
say that one
I'm
more
trying to avoid duplication so we don't get bored by the hearing Apple
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again.
And you said like it can be like you don't want duplications, but it could be like any company you want. You don't want anything like
Not any
specified
company, publicly traded,
publicly. Oh, okay.
because you can get better information.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking about doing like a computer hardware company.
So
like yeah,
be
I
careful
don't think they're
about it.
public.
Yeah,
though.
but you got to be careful about products because it's hard to characterize a company. Might be easier to have a product represented.
Okay, because I was just thinking about doing like the company that like makes my mouses and like keyboards and stuff. There's like a gaming company, and I was thinking about doing that.
Better make sure that they're public.
Okay.
Can you repeat, Professor? Can you repeat one more time what you're wanting us to respond to?
I want you to identify a company, product, or product line which accurately can be used for your benchmark assignment, and identify that for me so that I can make sure that we don't duplicate it over and over again. You need to have that by Sunday to do your perceptual map and positioning, and therefore I would like to have that from you on Friday, no later than Friday,
Okay, and just send that to you on questions to instructor forum.
or the private forum, either way.
Got it.
Okay, so is this the same thing as you told us before about telling you about a brand to do for the rest of the semester, or is this something
Yes.
separate?
No, it's exactly the same thing. You're right.
Oh, it's the same. Okay, thank you.
I mean, look, as I said, I'm looking at 23 people who haven't done it yet. So I got to get you to move because you got to make that decision and get working on it.
I already did my perceptual map on and positioning. Do I just want? Do you just want me to like on? You said just make up a company for that because I'm moving to Arizona this weekend. Is it okay if I pick something different than what I wrote my memo and did my perceptual map on?
No, you want to keep it the same.
Okay, because I just used a fitness company. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because it was one I made up.
But you want to be consistent. We're producing a marketing plan for one company or product line.
Okay.
All right. That's the whole purpose of this 3-part benchmark. And you're going to make a presentation on it. The more you do consistent research on one company, the less you have to do at the end.
Okay.
All right. So wait, that perceptual map statement, that was on the cookie thing, right? That we just turned in?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm just making sure because I just had a crap moment because I already turned that in. I just wanted to make sure I was doing it correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm also in Carson's position. I have to move, so I was just getting all my assignments done early.
I know this is tough. I appreciate that situation.
Yeah.
Just do the best you can in getting these things in on time.
Okay.
To add to that, you said that the positioning statement and the perceptual map were supposed to be on our company, but I also did it on the cookies, so I'm confused.
No, cookies. Excuse me, I'm wrong.
Oh, okay. I had a mini heart attack right there. I was so scared.
I screwed up. But
yeah.
I want you. I need to know about that company because you're going to be delivering in another week, right?
Oh, yeah.
The cookie one was okay to do it on the cookies and not on.
No, it's not okay. It's required.
Okay.
Even worse. It's even worse than that.
It would have been hard if we had to do another company. It would have been hard because like you gave like all the like with the examples, or you say like, oh yeah, the people who did this in a 12-week study lost like 5 pounds, and like the stuff that we had to put on like the charts, that would have been hard to do without any of that information.
Gotcha. I understand. Okay, well, I'm at that old, I make mistakes every now and then. So it's all right.
No, it's so good.
Let me also want to remind you of one other thing. The definition of ethics is the way you behave among ourselves, human to human, right? Morals are the way you act vis-a-vis a standard. Most standards are religious. In other words, you grew up in a particular church or a certain belief, and that is represented by that standard, usually from a greater than a human, a God, for example. I'm trying to be general, so I may not be saying it perfectly, but so morals is, you're measuring yourself against a greater standard, and ethics is how you act with human beings between us, our actions. So don't mix those two up. From the standpoint, because we want to be precise about some of the things we talk about, especially when you say things like ethics in advertising or in market research. Okay, just one of my pet peeves. What can I tell you? I've been thinking about these things for about 40 years now, so I have a lot of prejudices. Any questions? Any other questions about anything we're doing?
I was just curious about because this next week is the week that some of us, but we'll be moving back to GCU. So will there be any significant changes within this week for the class, or like anything we need to keep in mind?
No.
Okay.
No, we're gonna have the nice thing about it is that this will be the last week that is important for 2 lectures. Because everybody, after the 3rd week, you're only going to have 1 lecture a week.
Oh, okay.
That's the real change in this. So that this is going to be a mess for. That's why I'm trying to get so much done in this first.
Wait. So there's not like there's only we're having 1 Zoom lecture and then 1 in person, right? Or we're just having 1 in. Oh God.
We're going to have 2 lectures, Wednesday and Friday. But they are the same because half the class will be in on Wednesday and half will be on Friday. So there's only going to be 1 lecture that week.
Okay, because I was asking
twice, but but it'll be to half the class.
I was asking that because like some of my friends at other colleges, they go in person, but they're still required to be on the Zoom call. So like the other half of the other people like can join the lecture. I don't know. It's weird.
So
This is going to be this. I'm talking about the in-person time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So will we only have to join either the in-person or online? So say for example, we have class Wednesday, right? If I miss the Wednesday class in person, can I just join the online, or do we still have to go to both?
I'm not going to have an online class in the fourth week.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We're only going to be Zoom first, second, third. We're
Gotcha.
only going to be in person 4th through 16th.
Okay. And then one more question about next week. Is there any classes during Welcome Week? I know there's no assignments due, but is there any classes? Are classes still being held?
Wednesday and Friday.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was just curious about that. Okay.
Yeah. It's
I
the
have a
same,
question.
you know, same as today, Wednesday, and then Friday.
I have a question about the blended stuff. So I'm a Friday in class, so I'll be doing the blended stuff on Wednesday. I haven't really checked. I probably should have before I asked this question, but the blended activities are those going to be due on the days that I'm sorry, I'm stuttering. Are the blended activities going to be due on Sunday, or are they going to be due on the day that we actually have the blended activities?
No, there are dates for every exercise that we do.
Okay.
They're almost always on Sunday.
Got you. All right, I just wanted
the supplemental syllabus by week. It gives you every due date.
Okay. Yeah.
Most of them are Sundays.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to check in and make sure.
Okay. It's going to be fun. We work together. We'll try to, minimize the complexity whenever we can. Okay. Thank you very much for your attention. Appreciate your participation. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Yes, dear.
Well, not question. I just wanted to